April is the month of the military child. Did anybody know that already? I figured a few of you would. Maybe went to the Kiwanis thing in Pinehurst this weekend or something like that. Raise your hand if one or both of your parents or grandparents was in the military or currently. See, Chaplain Curlin, that's why we have to have this event.
That's awesome.
So in honor of you all, and to thank you and your special families, this is really a special part of being O'Neill. We have a special speaker for today in honor of the month of the military child. Major David Curlin, who will talk with us about the importance of character and values, which ties in perfectly to what we've been doing all year. Major Curlin is a chaplain in the United States Army. He attended Wheaton College in Illinois and commissioned as an infantry officer in 1990. He served in Vicenza, Italy, followed by 6 years of missionary service in Albania. Chaplain Curlin returned to active duty as an Army chaplain in 2003 and completed 4 combat tours in Iraq. Before returning to college, actually, to complete his master's degree in religious studies at the University of Chicago. We are delighted to have Chaplain Curlin with us today and for him to be a part of our community. As you may know, he's the proud father of Pascal, Masada, Jerusha, and Reba. So join me in welcoming Major Curlin.
All right, good afternoon. I'm really glad to be with you. You know, I spend most of my time talking to adults. I'm an Army chaplain, and the Army has chaplains. Actually, sometimes there's a debate on why the Army has chaplains. But one thing that we do is the Army wants us to help people have a good life. They want us to help people make good decisions and have good relationships and do really well in life. And so it's a big privilege. But you know what? You know why I like talking to you guys more than the adults? Because when you're why? Because you won't start a fight with me. Well, that may be one reason. Thanks. You know why I like it? Because the only people that really get influenced are children and young people. You know, by the time we become adults, we're pretty set in our ways. And so today I want to talk to you about these really, really important years as young people. Have you ever thought about the fact that every day you're becoming the person you're going to be forever? Every single day. And so all the decisions you make, how you behave and how you act and what you like to eat and what you like to watch and how you study and how you treat other people, all of that is forming who you're going to be for the rest of your life. So, I got a question. Do we spend most of our life as kids or most of our life as adults?
What? Adults.
As adults, you're right. We spend the vast majority of our lives as adults. But you know what's crazy? Much of who we are as adults begins when we're kids. And you know what's so sad? Most of us when we're kids don't appreciate how important it is, what we do, and how we live our lives as adults. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that today. Now, I want to ask you, who wants to live a good life? Wow, every single person. Well, you know what? Thank you for answering. Y'all are in a good place to do it. You know, my wife and I, we are really thankful for O'Neill and for all the teachers and faculty and parents and everyone who invests in this school to give you a great head start for the rest of your life. You know, you guys are really fortunate. Not many kids get to have an opportunity to start off their life as well as you get to start it off here at O'Neill. And so we're really thankful, and I want to hopefully just drive in a point that your teachers are pressing in every day, and that is that every day you're becoming the person you're going to be for the rest of your life. So, what makes a good life? Anybody know? Yes. What makes a good life?
What makes a good life is being nice to people.
Being nice to people. That is a very important part of a good life. Thank you. How about right here? Anybody? Okay, yeah, absolutely. I'm taking amen on the second. Be nice to people. Yes.
Making the most of yourself.
Okay, making the most of yourself, yes. Being a good steward of all that you've had and all the gifts you've had. One more, right up here. You right there in the blue. Y'all are both in the blue. Both of you give me a reason. What makes a good life? Yes, you and then you. Don't smoke cigarettes. That is actually a very good thing to keep you. You'll have a chance of living a lot longer and you'll save a lot of money. And you won't smell that. Yes? Say again? Yeah, live a good life as a child. Begin to practice. Well, thank you guys. I wish I could hear from every one of you because you guys got great answers. You know what I'm surprised I didn't hear? A lot of money. I'm glad I didn't hear that. Or to be famous. Because you know what? I think this school's been doing a good job, or your mom and dad have. Because our culture and our world, they tell you if you want to be happy, be rich and famous, and everything will go well. Do you think that's true? No. It's not, is it? Wow! Man, you guys have been doing good on this virtue training. Y'all are an unusual group. Y'all may not even need me here. I got another question about living a good life. You think it's easy to live a good life? No. It's not. Why not? You in the green.
Because there's so many people that want to tell you, no, you can't do that, that's wrong, don't do that. And you might get aggravated, then you're most likely going to do something that's wrong.
Okay.
And then that will
Okay. You know, not everybody in life encourages you to live a good life, does it? A lot of people say, oh, you can't do that. And so sometimes you have to have enough perseverance, we got that good word, to press on to live well. How about you in the back? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You know, it's another reason that your childhood years are so important because you don't have as much free time as you get older. You have a lot less say over your time. Oh, if we could only appreciate that as children. Yes? Say that again? You know what? Do you think most people are naturally, are we born usually most of us lazy or hard workers? Now I got a mixed audience. You know, there's probably a little bit of both. But what I want to make the point of today, if you want to give a good life, I agree with you. It's not easy. But is it worth it? Yes. It is worth it, isn't it? And so I just want to share with you a few stories from my life and to tell you a few stories to talk about how is it that right now, as children, you prepare for the good life you want to live for as many years as God gives you. Okay. Now, I love the fact that you're talking about virtues. Today we heard a really good presentation from the 5th graders about perseverance. And perseverance is really important. I have a question. I think perseverance is an illustration of the fact. Who agrees that perseverance is important for a good life? All of you. That's good. Who thinks that perseverance requires being able to overcome difficulty? All of you. That's good. It does. And so it's a very good illustration of our need early on in our life to live with discomfort. So, in the past, people believed that there were several important ways that you could help people live a good life. And almost everybody's been in agreement that you need to have a certain set of virtues if you're going to live a good life. Anybody ever heard of the Book of Virtues? A few of you. I want to encourage you, if you don't have a copy of the Book of Virtues, tell your mom and dad to go out and get you a copy. William Bennett wrote this book, and you know what he did? He went back through history in a lot of different cultures all over the world, and he picked the best stories that people told their children and told each other about how you live the good life. And you know what? Perseverance is one of those virtues. There's also self-discipline and compassion, responsibility, friendship, work, courage, honesty, loyalty, and faith, among others. All very important characteristics in living a good life. Now, not everybody's had the same vision of what a good life looks like. Who's ever heard of the Spartans? Can somebody tell me, what was the Spartan culture like? Do you know? Yes. You, raise your hand in the pink dress, yes.
It was a lot of war.
Okay, a lot of war. You're exactly right. The Spartans believed that if they were going to have a good life, you know what they had to do? They had to survive. Because a lot of people wanted to take their land. And so by the time the children were little, you know what they told them to do? You know what a virtue they had was? Perseverance was a big one. Courage, selflessness, the ability to deal with pain. And you know what they did to their children? They would beat their children up. Now, not because they didn't love them, but they thought if a kid started crying because he hurt himself, you know what they say? They'd say, get up. Because they knew if you were going to be a good soldier, you had to be tough. And when you were hurting and you had blisters on your feet and your back was sore, and you didn't feel like, you know what they knew you had to do if you were going to be a good soldier? You had to persevere. You had to keep going. And so the Spartans were renowned. This is really, really bad, and I don't recommend this, but you know what the Spartans did? If they saw that you were a really weak baby, you know what they did? What? They killed you. That's right. Now, I'm not saying those virtues are good, but their vision for the good life was to be a strong, warrior-like people. And so in the Spartan world, who did the fighting? The warriors. And who was the top class in Spartan society? The warriors. Not the slaves, the farmers, and the other people. They took care of things, but the people that they thought were really noble, they taught to be tough and to be great fighters. That was one vision of a life. Where else do we get our vision of the good life? Where else? Yes, you, in the white shirt. From experience. Experience is a very good teacher. Thank you. And you, in the white shirt. Yeah, right there. Yes, you. Where? Okay. Yeah, from experience, from practice. We talk a lot about that. One more person. Where do we get our vision of a good life? Yes. Okay, you do. You learn a whole lot about what the good life is as a childhood. You know, historically, people have had different visions. There's been a lot in common. A lot of these virtues are the same. Anybody ever heard of the Bible? The Torah? How about the Quran? The Bhagavad Gita? How about the Iliad and the Odyssey? You know, these were all stories that people told themselves that gave a vision of what a good life looked like. And there's a lot of visions in common. Now, this week, there's a group that influenced all of us, a very small group of people who've had a big impact, and they have a very important holiday this weekend. Anybody know what group that is? Yes, you. Okay, that's all right. Yes. It's a tough one, isn't it? It's a really hard question. Yes. Anybody? Yes. Okay, you know what I was thinking about? Those are all good answers. This is the Jewish Passover weekend. And the reason that group was really important is because from the Jews and from all their teachings, they changed really how we saw history and how we saw ourselves. And then out of Judaism came Christianity and Islam. Very, very important this week. How we think about ourselves came out of it. It's also the Orthodox Easter this week. And I only mention that because there are two very dominant visions of what it means to live well. Now I'm going to get into the fun part. So, there's been one thing that people have recognized for a long time. If you want to live a good life, it begins in childhood. And you know one of the primary tools they used for teaching people how to live well? Storytelling. Who's ever heard of Plato? Man, this is a smart group. They did a good job here at O'Neill. I'm not going to call you out, but somebody tell me, what did Plato kind of do? What do we call a guy like Plato? Yes, anybody? Shout it out. He was in modern speak, a philosopher, a teacher. He was a student, and then he also became a teacher. He would have liked O'Neill a lot. And you know what Plato said? He said the most important part of every project is the beginning. And he said, therefore, he looked and he said, what we teach our children makes all the difference about how they are as adults. And he said, why do we let our children listen to any old story? He said, we have to tell our children good stories so that they'll be good citizens. I got a question for you. What are some of your favorite stories? Yes. You, yes. Fairy tales? Fairy tales teach a lot of good lessons. That's good. Do you have a particular favorite? Okay, good. You. Little Red Riding Hood. What do you like about Little Red Riding Hood? Was Little Red Riding Hood? Was she a good young lady? She was, wasn't she? What was she going to do? Yeah, she was going to visit her grandmother and take care of her. Anybody else? Give me a favorite movie. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Favorite movie? SpongeBob. I'm not proficient enough to comment on SpongeBob. How about right here? Utopia? Oh, Zootopia. Again, I'm showing my ignorance. I'm not going to ask any more questions because I'm a generation removed. You know what? I just want to make a comment. This is actually, again, I'm dating. I am sorry that I'm not up on my most recent movies. But I bet you guys are. How many of you guys have seen? Explained on the story with Cullen McCulkey about the Christmas thing. Home Alone. How many have seen Home Alone? You guys like that? So, I got a question. Do y'all think Plato would have liked Home Alone? Yeah, I don't think Plato would have liked it. You know why? Because who's the really smart one in the movie? The kid, right? And the parents and adults are all kind of stupid. Plato would say, no, that's a bad lesson. And I think when we see in Home Alone, we also see a young man. Was he polite to his parents? Not really, was he? And so, I thought Home Alone was a fun movie too when I first saw it. But as I've gotten older, I thought, I don't think this movie teaches kids very good lessons. And so this is one thing that I want to point out here now. You know what I love about your age? I mean, not only you guys are eager, you're smart, and you know what? At this phase, most of you really have a vision for caring for each other and for living a good life. But y'all know what? You're getting ready to enter into some years when a lot of you are going to begin to face pressures and stories. And you know what? A lot of you aren't going to navigate it very well. And I hate that I look at all your beautiful voices, all your beautiful faces, and I saw all this eagerness, and I see all this virtue, and all this desire to do good. But I want to tell you, the world is not set up to encourage all of that. Our world, most of the movies we watch, and most of the stories we tell, they're silly stories, and they don't encourage a lot of virtue. And so I want to encourage you right now, even though you're probably too young to have a good sense of discernment, when you watch messages, think, what is that movie teaching me about the good life? And if you notice there's a message that's not a good one, reject it. I want to tell you a quick story. It's about two families. There was Mr. and Mrs. Discipline, and then there was Mr. and Mrs. Indulgence. And they both had 4 kids. And they were next door neighbors. And when they were really little, when they were all kind of babies, Mr. and Mrs. Indulgence, every time their kids cried, they picked them up and they hugged them and kissed them, and they wouldn't let anything happen to them. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Discipline, they thought it was important. They loved their kids too, but they didn't think it was a very good idea to respond to every whim. And you know what else they did? Mr. and Mrs. Discipline, they made their children eat spinach and squash and other stuff. They kicked their mouth out like this and back with the spoon right in their mouth. Oh, but not Mr. and Mrs. Indulgence. If their children didn't like it, if they didn't like spinach, they got chocolate. And if they didn't like squash, they got candy. Oh man, whose kids do you think were most happy at that phase? Who? Mr. and Mrs. Indulgence, that's right. Who liked squash? A few of you. I didn't like it as a kid. Well, later on as they grew up, Mr. and Mrs. Indulgence, boy, they loved their kids. And you know what they decided? Their kids like to play lots of video games and watch lots of TV, and they love potato chips and cookies and junk, and they really didn't like their vegetables because they didn't learn to eat them young. And so you know what they did? They said, everybody else does it. And so Mr. and Mrs. Indulgence, they bought their kids every game system there was, and boy, were they good video game players. And they also got to eat all the junk food they wanted. Boy, when they came to lunch, it was nothing but potato chips and cookies and all kinds of good stuff. And boy, Mr. and Mrs. Discipline, when their kids looked on, man, they felt like, man, Mom and Dad, they're not treating us very well. We don't get any of this stuff. And you know what? Mom and Dad won't even give us a video game system, and they barely let us watch any TV at all. Because you know what? Mr. and Mrs. Discipline, they were telling their kids, hey, in life, there's a whole different set of skills that are important. And so they made them work hard and read books and work in the yard and do all kinds of things that weren't very fun. Well, later on when they got to high school and they started going to school, Mr. and Mrs. Indulgence, boy, every time things were hard, they grabbed their kids around and said, I know it's so hard to be like this, and, you know, have a cookie. And here's some more video games. And you know what? Those teachers really are mean. They expect too much of you. And all your classmates, yeah, they're bad too. You're not the problem. And Mr. and Mrs. Indulgence, when they came over and their children had a problem, they said, you do what your teacher said. They're the ones in authority over you. How come you disrespected them? And well, I know they're treating you badly, but why don't you treat them well in return? And so they went on, and you know, for a while, Mr. and Mrs. Discipline, their kids, they thought, man, the Indulgences, they got it a lot better than we do. They get to do what they want to do. They get to play when they want to play. We got to do homework. We got to go to bed on time. Our parents won't buy us all these other fun things. In fact, we feel kind of weird. But you know what happened? A little bit later on, when they got to college, the Indulgences had a lot of trouble. Because you know what? There were no teachers there to help them. If they didn't show up, they failed. And you know what? There was no one to tell them how sweet and great and wonderful they were. And so by this time, you know, the Indulgences were doing good early on because they had people to take care of them, and they had a lot of money, and they had all good clothes, and they were kind of cool. But you know, once they got to college, it wasn't quite as cool anymore because they started flunking their classes. And by the time they were young adults, oh my goodness, no one was jealous of the indulgent kids anymore. By that time, they dropped out of school. They had a hard time. They had a hard time making friends. And they had none of the characteristics they needed to be successful in life. So, whose family would you like to be in? Which one? Shout it out loud. The Indulgences?
No.
Good. I heard the Disciplines, right? Yeah, the Disciplines. You know one thing I heard you guys say? I heard a couple of you say being nice to each other. And I really, really like that. Because oftentimes you're getting ready to come into an age where not everybody's so nice to each other. I want to tell you just a few more stories, and I want to tell you a little bit about myself. First of all, we're going back, the first point I'll make, you're becoming the person you're going to be forever. And it's really important the stories you tell yourself, and learning to work hard and be disciplined. But I also want to remind you that it's really, really going to be hard work. You know, I mentioned the Indulgences. They didn't want their kids to learn to eat vegetables because, you know what, it's kind of yucky. But later on, when they got older, they had to persevere, they had to work through it, they didn't like it, they had to develop an appetite for the right kind of food. But when they did, they were more happy. Anybody think exercise is easy? Who thinks exercise is really easy? Well, sometimes it is when you're a kid. But as you get older, you got to work at it. But it's worth it. Who thinks being a good student is easy? Wow, a couple of you. That's great. It won't be like that forever. Most people find that being a good student is a lot of hard work. And so, you've got to go through pain. And this is, you know, kids, this is where you can help your mom and dad. Moms and dads, we're kind of in a tough spot because you know what? We want our kids to be happy, and we want you all to have a good life. But you know what else we know? If we don't teach you to deal with pain, and if we don't let you have hardship, we're going to mess you up. And so most moms and dads are like, I know I want my kid to have a good life, but man, I want him to be happy. And a lot of us, we give in the moment. And so I want all you guys, when you get home, you tell your mom and dad. You say, Mom and Dad, help me be great. If I cry or whine or complain, you don't let me do that. You remind me that in order to have a good life, I got to work hard and move through difficulty and not feel sorry for myself. And you know what? You may not like every moment now, but you'll be really, really glad to hear them talk. Now, I want to tell you one thing that I've learned the hard way. As I told you, every day you're becoming the person you're going to be for the rest of your life. You know what? When I was a kid, I wanted to have a good life. And I did read some good stories. I used to love missionary biographies about people going into the jungle and running away from cannibals and talking to people. And I was like, wow, I want to be like that. I love the idea of going and giving my life away so that other people can live and have a better kind of life. But I also grew up, I was undisciplined, and I was a kid who didn't like pain, and I tried to avoid it as much as possible, even though my parents were trying to help me. And so you know what I decided? I was about 13, 14. By that time I could look around and see the kind of people I wanted to be. I said, you know what? I want to live a good life. You know what? I want to have a lot of fun first. And so you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to do just the bare minimum of what I need to do so that I can have as much fun as possible. And you know in my mind, you know what I said? I said, you know what? I think about 25 is a good time to get serious about life. And you know what I did? I fooled around and had fun and did as little as possible. And then at 25, you know what I said? It's about time for me to be the kind of person I want to be the rest of my life. And you know what I did? I snapped my finger. And you know what I discovered? Oh no! I'm the same person I've been the last 25 years. All these bad habits, all these bad appetites, my dislike for work, my dislike for doing things I don't like to do. Oh no! I'm still like that. I can't do it. And did y'all know that at 48, I still struggle? I still struggle with bad habits that I created when I was a kid and a teenager. And in some ways, I'm thankful for my life, and I've learned a lot of good lessons, but in some ways, my life is diminished, and I don't live as good a life as I would like to live because I developed the wrong habits. I thought when I'm a kid, I could do what I want to do, and then when I get old, I'm going to change. And that's not how it is. Every single day, you're becoming the person you're going to be for the rest of your life. I want to just tell you, as we wrap it up here, I want to tell you just a couple of my favorite stories. You know what? When I was a kid, I don't know why, but I was a huge liar. Oh my, I told lie after lie after lie. Think that's a good characteristic? No. It's not, is it? And again, I don't know why I lied. I think I wanted people to like me. I wanted people to think I was cool. You know, one time I think the story, I was in 4th grade. I can still remember I told it. I told the story about visiting my friend and using his motorcycle. And I was going to jump his pond. And I jumped his pond in the motorcycle, and I landed in the pond, and I rode my motorcycle out of the pond. I told everybody that story, including the parents. I just sometimes they're like, why didn't nobody correct me? Well, my parents were really busy, and they didn't have time to call me out. And so, you know what happened to me? I got into college. And yeah, I had friends, people like me, but you know what? I'd gotten in such a habit of lying, I'd lie for no reason at all. And I remember one day it dawned on me. I was trying to tell my friends I was telling the truth this time. And they said, Curlin, you're always lying. We don't believe anything you say. We like you, but we don't believe anything you say. And you know what? At that point, I said, I got to quit lying. But you think it happened overnight? No, it took me like 7 years to quit. And so you know what I did with my kids? When I heard my daughter, I don't know if any of y'all know, my daughter Masada, oh, she loved to tell lies when she was little. You probably wouldn't believe that about her now. And you know what I told my wife? I said, I am never going to let any of my kids lie. Because it was so embarrassing for me for so long. And, you know, I'm sure my kids maybe lie occasionally, but if I catch it, I have no mercy for it. And when I see other kids do it, I don't call them out there because I don't want to embarrass them. One mom did that to me once. But I always point out to my kids and say, kids, you want to be like that? And so, you know, one of the great stories we tell is the boy who cried wolf, don't we? He lied so long that when they needed him, he told the truth, he couldn't get it. So, that's one of the examples of the importance of telling the truth, but don't have any tolerance for lies. It'll cause you so much pain in life. There's another thing that I told you, and that was that I didn't like to work too hard. And because I didn't like to work hard, I did everything I could to avoid it. And as we talked earlier, you think to have a good life, you think good work is important?
Yeah.
It is, isn't it? Being able to work hard. I want to read you a little story. This is an example of the book of virtues about working hard. This is the story of the little red hen. A little red hen once found a grain of wheat. Excuse me, that's the long version. I'm going to go for the 5 little chickens. Chickens make good illustrations. Said the first little chicken with a queer little squirm, "Oh, I wish I could find a fat little worm." Said the next little chicken with an odd little shrug, "Oh, I wish I could find a fat little bug." Said the third little chicken with a sharp little squeal, "Oh, I wish I could find some nice little meal." Said the fourth little chicken with a small sign of grief, "Oh, I wish I could find a green little leaf." Said the fifth little chicken with a faint little moan, "Oh, I wish I could find I were rather stone." "Now see here," said the mother from the green garden patch, "if you want any breakfast, you must come and scratch." And you know what? I have looked in life, and there's certain students in our country that do a lot better than others. And so they went around and they're like, why do some people do so much better in school and in life than others? And you know what they found out? They asked the successful students. They said, what makes a person successful? And you know what the successful students said? Being smart? No, you know what they said? Hard work. Consistently. Those young men and women who grew into successful older men and women, when they asked them, they said it was hard work. You know what they asked the underperforming group? What makes you successful? You know what they all said? Being smart. And you know what the difference was? People who thought they were smart, they felt, I can't do anything. I'm just not good at this. But the kids who thought that hard work was the key to success, even if they found something difficult, they were taught that if I work hard enough, I'll get it. My wife's a great testimony of that. Boy, she's a hard worker. And she gets all kinds of hard stuff. The importance of hard work. And I wish I had learned it a lot younger than I did. Finally, I want to conclude with an example. This is aimed primarily at you guys. And you know what, guys? Right now, y'all are doing well, but we men, in our world, we're doing really bad. We're struggling. We're filling up the prisons. We're not filling up the colleges. We got big time problems. And I think a lot of it's because we have lost our way. And so I want to conclude with a poem that came from the turn of the century. And it was a virtue poem talking about the importance of becoming the man you want to be for the rest of your life. It's called Boy Wanted. It said wanted. A boy that stands straight, sits straight, acts straight, talks straight. A boy whose fingernails are not in mourning, whose ears are clean, whose shoes are polished, whose clothes are brushed, whose hair is combed, and his teeth are well cared for. A boy who listens carefully when he's spoken to, who asks questions when he does not understand, and does not ask questions about things that are none of his business. A boy that moves quickly and makes a little noise about it as possible. A boy who whistles in the street, but does not whistle where he ought to be still. A boy who looks cheerful, has a ready smile for everybody, and never sulks. A boy who is polite to every man and respectful to every woman and girl. A boy who does not smoke cigarettes and has no desire to learn how. A boy who is more eager to know how to speak good English than to talk slang. A boy that never bullies other boys, nor allows other boys to bully him. A boy who, when he does not know a thing, says, I don't know. And when he has made a mistake, says, I'm sorry. And when he is asked to do a thing, says, I'll try. A boy who looks you right in the eye and tells you the truth every time. A boy who is eager to read good books. A boy who would rather put his spare time in at the YMCA gymnasium than to gamble for pennies in the back room. A boy who does not want to be smart, nor in any way wise to attract attention. A boy who would rather lose his job and be expelled from school than to tell a lie or be a cad. A boy whom other boys like. A boy who is at ease in the company of girls. A boy who is not sorry for himself and not forever thinking and talking about himself. A boy who is friendly with his mother and more intimate with her than anyone else. A boy who makes you feel good when he is around you. A boy who is not a goody-goody, a prig, or a little Pharisee, but just a healthy, happy, and full of life boy. This boy is wanted everywhere. The family wants him, the school wants him, the office wants him, the boys want him, the girls want him. All creation wants just such a boy. And you know, there's probably a similar poem I could say about you young ladies. I hope for every one of you that you're going to give a good life. You're going to live a great and good life. I hope every one of you have nothing but happiness and joy. But I want you to all remember that it begins right now. It takes a lot of work, and it depends on you developing the virtues and characteristics right now as your children that will carry you through in life. Thank you for your attention. You guys are a great group of students. Have a good day.